Good morning, Blue Jay friends, and thanks for being here. This is Blue Jays vs. Them, and I'm your host, Jerry Schminnard. I want to welcome back my regular listeners. You continue to inspire and keep me going. Recently, the show received over 150 total downloads off the Buzzsprout website, so thank you very much for that. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. I hope you'll stick around and become a regular listener. The Jays have now played 20 of their 33 spring training games. At the time of this episode's publishing, there are only 2 weeks until the regular season. I can't wait. If you have any questions or comments, you can go to the website at www.bluejaysversusthem.ca. That's bluejaysvsthem.ca. You can also find links to my social media on the website. Here are a few things we'll cover in this episode. We'll do a recap from last week, continue the segment of stats for pitchers and batters, the final promotional days and giveaways, pitch clocks and mound visits, the scores from the third week of spring training. We'll touch on the WBC, a look ahead at the grapefruit schedule for the Jays, and we'll finish off with some closing remarks. Last week's episode was just over 15 minutes. I trimmed down the amount of play recap for each game, which certainly helped keep the time down. However, not all went smoothly. Not only was I a little bit late publishing the episode, I made a mistake and had to correct my blunder and republish the whole episode. Well, let's see how things work out this week. With only 2 more weeks until the regular season gets underway, I will continue this segment this week and next. If I don't get through the entire line of pitching stats or batter stats, I'll try to keep to the most talked about or the most confusing. Last week, I started going across the line of pitching stats you'd find on either baseballreference.com or in the MLB app. I started with a column with a G on the top and finished with the GF, and sort of explaining the difference between that and a complete game or a save. So let's just skip over the complete games since they don't happen anymore anyway. The next stat column would be the SHO or the shutout. Well, unless it's a combined shutout, they don't happen either. Like in hockey, it references no scoring, but with fewer and fewer complete games being recorded, it stands to reason there are even fewer single pitchers who record a complete game shutout. You might hear of a combined shutout, where not only the starter but the relief pitchers who followed combined to not allow any runs. This leads us to the next few stats of holds, saves, and save opportunities. I think I'll start with the saves. A relief pitcher will earn a save when they were brought in to pitch in the 9th inning or later, with less than a 3-run lead or the tying run is at the plate. I say 9th inning or later, but that only applies to the visiting team. Why is that, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked, because the home team gets the last at bat. The visiting pitcher only gets an opportunity to save the game if their team takes the lead in the top of the inning. The home team only pitches in extra innings when the game was tied, therefore not qualifying for the save, but probably a blown save. But rejoice, they will earn the win if their team scores in the bottom of that inning. And here's where save opportunities come in. Save opportunities are any situation a pitcher enters the game with a save situation. If the pitcher does not record the save, either by giving up the lead or is removed before the end of the final out, we'll record a save opportunity. Finally, holds. Basically, it's a save for the setup man or the pitcher before the closer. I think that'll do it for this week. Join me next week and I'll try to explain whip. Now for the batters. Last week I touched on the plate appearances and then we went over hits and what does and doesn't constitute a hit. Well, I left off introducing the next few playing stats for batters in doubles, triples, and home runs. On a stat line after the H, you'll see a 2B, 3B, and AHR. Of course, those are doubles, triples, and home runs. Let's start with the easiest one, the home run. Anytime a ball leaves the field of play within the foul lines, it's a home run. So as long as it doesn't touch the ground first, but we'll get into that in a sec. Now let's complicate matters. There's also what's called an inside the park home run. This happens when the ball is put into play and the defending team does not retrieve the ball and get it into the infield in time to stop the runner from advancing. The same rule of thumb can be applied to triples, doubles, and singles for that matter. Last week I also talked about the defensive errors. Although they may factor in how far a batter may advance, they don't apply to whether it was a triple, double, or a single. Here's where things in baseball are completely different than any other sport, because every stadium is different. Unlike hockey, basketball, soccer, or football, each stadium has its own unique set of ground rules. The most common ground rule is if a ball that is hit within the foul lines bounces out of the field of play, or is otherwise interfered with, fan interference for instance. A double is automatically awarded to the batter with every base runner moving up 2 bases. Tropicana Field in Tampa has a whole slew of ground rules that I won't get into, and I wouldn't even try to explain them, even if I knew them. Next week, we'll look at RBIs, walks, intentional walks, and strikeouts. Last week, I spent a lot of time talking about how I thought the shift change and bigger bases were playing out, and possibly into how manager John Schneider wanted the team to play. I didn't leave much time to discuss pitching. Well, so far I like it. I think it's largely reduced the cat and mouse strategy between hitters and pitchers. The batter asking for multiple timeouts because the pitcher was trying to throw off their batting rhythm. Now the batter gets one timeout per plate appearance. Of course, the pitch clock does reset to 15 or 20 seconds after the timeout. Sure, there'll still be a bit of a cat and mouse. It's just put into a smaller box. Pitchers walking around the mound after an unfavorable play or a call to gather themselves. Gone. PitchCom has also helped with the pacing of the game, but more on that a little later. The other change is mound visits, which I'd said I'd cover next week. Well, it's next week. As mentioned 2 weeks ago, a pitcher only is allowed 2 disengagements from the pitching rubber per batter. However, mound visits do not count. Any visit to the mound by either the catcher, the coach, or the manager is counted as a mound visit. Teams are only allowed 5 during the 9 innings of play, except for injury timeouts. Teams can have an additional mound visit in the 9th inning if they used up their 5 allowed, but it will be counted as a disengagement from the rubber. Well, I hope that didn't muddy the water for you. I left off the announced promo schedule with August 12th, Jose Bautista Day, which I'm told is completely sold out. So here's the rest of the promotional dates and giveaways. On Wednesday, August 16th versus the Phillies is Vlad Jr. Blue Replica Jersey Day. Saturday, September 9th is Harry Potter Day, and fans will receive a Harry Potter themed Blue Jays scarf. Thursday, September 14th versus the Rangers is the final specialty ticket night. Tickets with the game will include a Blue Jay hat co-branded with your school logo on it. Don't ask me how this works. If anyone knows, please comment or tell me on social media. I don't know if I covered this one or not, but on September 15th versus the Red Sox is Jose Barrios bobblehead. And of course, the final homestand of the regular season, the weekend of September 29th versus Tampa Bay, is Fan Appreciation Weekend. On Friday, fans will receive a Blue Jays hoodie presented by TD. Last Thursday, the Jays had a split squad day. The first game was played at Tropicana Field to face the Rays, while the other squad played in Dunedin, hosting the Atlanta Braves at TD Ballpark. In Tampa, Casey Lawrence got the start, going 2 1/3, giving up 3 runs, 2 earned, walked 2 batters, and gave up 2 home runs. Drew Hutchinson got the call from the bullpen, gave up 2 hits, no runs, 1 walk, and struck out 4. The Jays' only run came in the 6th after Kiermaier hit a single and was lifted for a pinch runner, Stuart Baroa, who stole second, then third, and then scored on a 2-out single by Dalton Varsho. Addison Barger grounded out to second to end the inning. The final score, Blue Jays 1 run on 7 hits and 2 errors. Tampa had 6 runs on 10 hits and no errors. In Dunedin, Kevin Gausman got the start, going 3 2/3, allowing 2 hits and striking out 2. All the offense came on 3 home runs. Kevin Biggio hit a solo home run in the 3rd. The Braves tied it up with a home run of their own in the 7th. A 2-run Springer Dinger in the bottom of the 7th would be the game-winning runs. Final score, Braves 1 run off 4 hits, no errors. Blue Jays 3 runs off 7 hits with no errors. On Friday, the Blue Jays headed to JetBlue Park in Fort Myers to get their first look at the undefeated Boston Red Sox. Zach Thompson pitched 3 scoreless innings, striking out 2. The first run of the game came in the 3rd inning when Orelvis Martinez scored off a sac fly from Winton Bernard. In the 4th, Cam Eden scored off a double by Reiner Nunez. The Bo Sox were shut out and suffered their first loss of the preseason. The final score, Toronto 2 runs off 9 hits, no errors. Red Sox no runs off 5 hits, 1 error. On Saturday, the Jays hosted the Orioles. Chris Bassett got the start, going 3 innings, giving up 3 runs off 4 hits and striking out 5 batters. Trevor Richards got the win as the Jays outscored the O's 8-6. The final score was Baltimore 6 runs off 10 hits and 1 error. Blue Jays 8 runs off 7 hits and 1 error. Sunday, the Jays headed back to Clearwater and Baycare Ballpark to face the Phillies. Yosi Kikuchi once again looked solid, going 2 2/3, no runs off 4 hits. He did walk 3, but he struck out 4. Springer went off on his third home run of the preseason in the third inning. Varsho made it 2-0 on a sac fly to score Bo Bichette, and Whit Merrifield reached on an error. That scored Chapman for the inning's third run. Varsho also hit a double in the fifth to score Matt Chapman. Phillies scored 3 runs in the seventh inning, and the Jays answered back with 4 of their own in the top of the ninth. The final score, Toronto 8 runs off 14 hits and 2 errors. The Phillies had 3 runs off 13 hits with 3 errors. Also on Sunday, Team Canada got their first game in the WBC action. I'll touch on Canada's games in the WBC a little later. Monday, the Jays hosted the Red Sox. Alek Manoah got the start, and new Papa Alejandro Kirk got his first game action with a start behind the plate. Manoah pitched 3 1/3, giving up 3 runs on 3 hits, walking 4 batters and striking out 5. The Red Sox scored all 3 of their runs in the second inning. Bo Bichette went deep twice, a solo shot to left center field in the first and a 2-run blast in the fourth. A Boston error off of Bichette at bat allowed 2 more runs to score in the fifth after Whit Merrifield hit a double to score in a run. The final score, Boston 3 runs off 3 hits, committing 3 errors. The Blue Jays scored 16 runs off 18 hits, committing only 1 error. Tuesday, the Jays faced the Yankees at George Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. Drew Hutchison got knocked around in the first inning, giving up 6 runs off 3 home runs. Rainier Nunez hit a 2-run homer in the third. The Yankees got one of those runs back in the bottom of the inning with a solo home run. Dalton Varsho hit his third double of the spring for an RBI, but that was the extent of our offense. The final score, Toronto 3 runs on 9 hits, 1 error. Yankees 10 runs on 11 hits with no errors. On Wednesday, they played the Pirates for the 4th and final meeting before they meet in the regular season on May 5th at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Kevin Gausman got the start, going 3 1/3, allowing only 2 hits, 2 bases on balls, and striking out 7. Vladdy Guerrero Jr. made his return to the lineup, going 1 for 3 and an RBI. The final score, Pittsburgh 1 run on 5 hits with 2 errors, and the Blue Jays 7 runs on 8 hits, no errors. Later today, assuming you're listening on the day this episode is published, the Jays will head back to Ed Smith Stadium in Sarasota to face the Orioles. World Baseball Classic. Pool play or group play wrapped up Wednesday for Pool C. The group Canada was in, along with Great Britain, Colombia, Mexico, and the United States. Team Canada was eliminated in the final game against Mexico. They went 2 for 2, losing to the United States and Mexico. Mexico won the group because of a tiebreaker in the head-to-head match when Mexico stunned the United States. One of the things I'm going to bring up throughout the season is the home and away parity. Something that, in baseball, does mean a great deal more than it does in any other sport, because it determines who gets last offensive opportunity. I'll assume the host team for each group determined the schedule. Group A played in Taiwan, and Chinese Taipei had 3 games as the home team, while Panama played as the away team 3 times. The same went for Group B in Tokyo with Japan and Czech Republic. In Group C, of course, with Great Britain playing 3 away games and the USA playing 3 home games. In Group D, it was Puerto Rico with their home games and Nicaragua with 3 away games. My understanding, it was the top seed and the bottom seed of each group. Seriously, you're the top seed and you need to take competitive advantage away from the bottom seed in your group? Anyway, the championship game will take place on Tuesday, so next week I'll cover the elimination rounds and the championship, if there's time. Next week, tomorrow, Friday, the Jays will have a split squad day. Both squads will play the Phillies. 107 on both radio and TV. Just the home game at Dunedin. The Yankees will be in Dunedin on Saturday for a 1 o'clock game. On Sunday, the Jays will travel to the Trop to play the Rays. Then on Monday, the Jays will be in Lakeland to face the Tigers. They'll be off on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, the Jays will play host to the O's. This will be their final meeting of spring training. Their first matchup in the regular season will be when Baltimore comes to the Rogers Center for a weekend series on May 19th. And finally, next Thursday, the Jays will travel down to Fort Myers, this time to face the Minnesota Twins in Hammond Stadium. This will be the second and final meeting of the spring with the Twins. Last Wednesday, the Twins handed the Jays a 7-0 loss in Dunedin. Their first meeting of the regular season will come on May 26th when the Jays go to Target Field in Minnesota for a weekend series. All that should do it for this week's episode of Blue Jays vs. Them. Once again, I want to thank you for spending your time with me while I talk a little baseball. I hope you'll join me next week for the final episode of the spring training. If there are any questions or comments, you can leave them on the website right below the episode. You can find the links to Facebook or Twitter also on the website. Once again, the website is bluejaysversusthem.ca. That's bluejaysvsthem.ca. Next week, we'll finish off our look at stats definitions, recap the week that was, and look ahead at the final week of spring training. You can now find this podcast almost anywhere podcasts are available, including iHeartRadio. If you are listening from the podcast provider, please subscribe and give the podcast a positive rating. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really does help the podcast a great deal, and that would mean a world to me. If you came across this podcast on Twitter, please like the tweet, reply and retweet it. On Facebook, please leave a reaction on the post, comment, and feel free to share the post. Again, these things don't cost you anything except a fraction of your time, but it helps to bring awareness to the podcast, and it really does mean the world of difference to me. I'm just getting started, so every little bit helps. As always, I'm your humble host, Jerry Schwnard, and you've been listening to Blue Jays vs. Them. Once again, I want to thank you for spending your time with me, and join me next week and every Thursday for the regular season. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And let's go, Blue Jays, let's go. Bye-bye.